All right, so we got another patron request here from a new patron. Now, the reason his video is getting done first, I've mentioned this enough, but any of my patrons that are waiting, it's because I don't have the internet. It's been busy at work. I haven't had any damn time to watch anything. But anyway, so I just got a new patron like yesterday, and he picked something I own. If you pick something I own, I'm going to get to it like immediately. But if you pick something that's online, it's going to take a little while. So there you go. He picked Lake Mungo, which is part of the After Dark Horror Fest Year 4. Now, this was a film that I watched with a lady friend of mine named Amy. And Amy and I were big Farkle fanatics. And I would come over to her house, we would play Farkle, and then we'd play with each other. And that was kind of our thing for a little while. And one night I brought over this movie, and I hadn't seen it yet. I got it for $1 during the Hollywood Video closeout thing. I bought all of the After Dark Horror Fest films, and I was kind of just knocking them off one by one. And she was like, "Oh, you want to bring over a movie?" Because we watched the movie every time I came over as well. And so I brought over this movie, and I threw it on the TV. And honestly, we weren't really paying attention to it too much at first. And we were just kind of rolling the dice, playing Farkle, doing our thing. And then just kind of like as we were playing, it just like my eyes kept kind of going towards the TV and being like, this movie's fucking like, something's really creepy, eerie about this movie. There's something about the tone. There's something about the sound design. There's something's going on here. And just like the more it was going, the more I could not pay attention. It was the same with her. And we were both just sitting there watching this movie. And by the end of it, we were both just fucking like focused so hard on the TV. And I remember really one of the only things we kept asking each other was like, she was asking me, was like, is this real? This feels really real. Like this, I know, and I was saying, I'm like, no, this isn't real. But I totally understood where she was coming from because it's just so authentic feeling when you're watching it. Like they did such a great job in this movie of making this feel legitimate. Even though it isn't, and I feel like it should be clear that it isn't just because of my own personal beliefs, which I don't really have any. So I watch film, but there's something about it. It just has that genuine, documentary feel to it. So that's always been my memory of it, and I have not watched it since. So it's been years. I don't even remember the last time I hung out with Amy. I mean, we're talking, could it be? No. What year did this come out? Okay, 2009, which was 11 years ago. And I feel like it was maybe 8, 9 years ago. Maybe something. I don't remember, but it's a long ass time ago. And I have not seen it since, but I've always had a high opinion of it, and I've always wanted to check it out again to see if it held up. And having gone back, did I say my patron's name? It's not a real name, so I don't really think it matters. It'll be in the description below, but Grand Gato. So a grand kitty. So I don't know who this is, but that's the name that they have on Patreon. So you don't have to give your real name, but Grand Gato. Reminds me of my buddy on Sinister, who I have a Sinister Cinema Facebook group that you're not cool enough to be in, so don't even ask. No, I don't know. Maybe you are. Maybe you'll find out eventually. If I invite you to that group, you're fucking cool. But yeah, so it reminds me of a buddy of mine there he posts cat memes all the time in responses to everything, and it legitimately makes me laugh every single time. Like, I don't know how it's possible, but for some reason I actually have now convinced myself in my head, and I've seen pictures of the guy, so I know he's like a real guy. I know what he looks like, all that stuff. Not that he wouldn't be a real guy. But anyway, I've convinced myself in my head I see him now as a cat. Because he puts the pictures up as if it's him in the pictures, but it's a cat. So he's like, here's an actual image of me watching this movie, and it'll be like a really bored cat. He does that one a lot because he watches movies and finds them boring a lot, and then he'll do that, and it's like always a different picture of like a bored cat watching TV or something. So in my head, he's a fucking cat. And I know it's a real guy, but for some reason, anytime I fucking think of him, it's a cat. So when I saw Grand Gato, which is was Spanish for cat, right? Gato. It just was like, is that him? But anyway. All right. So this is a mockumentary, as you would know. Spoilers, obviously. Do I really even need to say that? I already talked about the authenticity of this. Now, this film, I feel like, is going to hit a little harder and a little closer to home and going to resonate with you more if you're a parent. Now, can you get this film and can it have this, a similar effect on you without children or anything? Of course, sure, I guess. But for me, I just feel like there is an added element to it being a parent. That's why the movie Megan is Missing fucked me up so greatly, because I had a kid. If I had no child, or if I wasn't wanting a child or anything, if I didn't have that connection to being a father, I don't think I would have had anywhere near the same experience. But I just fucking was wrecked after that movie. And while watching this movie, it does, kind of bring up a lot of your worst fears. Your daughter going missing, wondering what happened to her, hoping she's not dead, them finding the body, you having to come out and identify your fucking baby girl's dead body. Like, even though she's like, 16 years old in this, so she's like a young adult at this time, she's still your baby girl. Like, always, always, always. I don't care if I'm fucking 100 years old. My kid's like 70. Like, they're always going to be my baby girl to me. So nobody should ever have to bury their child. I mean, that's just a rule of law. Like, the rule of nature that unfortunately not all the time gets abided by. But, it really, really should be something that never, ever happens. Unfortunately, it does. But yeah, just like the acting in this is so genuine as well. Like, I feel like the reason it's so authentic is not only in the the filmmaking itself, in like the behind the scenes, sound design, music, editing, all that stuff, but in addition, to the craft, you also have the performances in this, which just feel like everyday people talking about a tragic event in their life, and then the supernatural goings on thereafter, or were they, kind of thing. And it just, it really does feel so genuine. And this film, I want to say, like, I don't exactly know where I would point my finger as far as the creep factor of this movie. Like, where would I give the credit? But the first thing that jumps to into my head right now when I'm thinking about that is the sound design. There's something about the lack of sound, the unsettling nature of silence. Like, sometimes horror movies and films don't embrace no noise. Like, they're so focused on these loud noises, like, oh, we'll shock the audience with these creepy sounds and really loud things that startle them. But there's like the opposite end of the spectrum, which is dead silence. And the way that it's inserted into this movie, or taken out of this movie, it's always during these moments where they're like looking at footage, looking at a photograph, these still images, and there's nothing in this movie that's jump scary. Well, there's one thing that actually did kind of get a reaction out of me on this viewing, when they see when they see her dead body as like a premonition that she saw and caught on her phone, and they show like the image of her, and then it freeze frames for a little bit, and then it like finally jumps forward. But that's like a genuine, earned jump scare, if you will. Like, that's not a loud bang, like, comes out of nowhere kind of thing. Like, there's tension, there's buildup, there's kind of, you know, the climax of it. Like, it's just like, it's sitting there, and you're looking at this image, and you're so focused on the image that you're, like, really trying to connect it to that earlier sequence where you're like, you saw the body, which is just a horrible thing. And that's the first time in this movie where there's like a gut punch for me. Just like having to go identify your daughter's body alone is horrendous enough. But then to get there and for it to be almost unrecognizable, to think that your body, that your daughter's body could be that wrecked. I mean, it's unimaginable. I don't get lost for words very often on the channel, but when I start thinking about my kids dead and having to identify their bodies and their bodies being so mutilated and decomposed like that, it's just, it's hard to concentrate. It's hard to continue like do a video and like talk to you guys like I have something interesting and entertaining to say when I'm thinking about like literally the most horrible thing I could ever imagine ever 10 times over. I almost feel like I'm getting emotional just fucking talking about it. But if you're a parent, you understand. It's just a horrible thing to think about. But yeah, I mean, anyway, so that sequence, you're connecting your mind to that moment, that still image that you get of her dead body and her dad having, so you already have like an emotional connection to it, but you've also, you know, got to get this visual connection to it, and you're like, oh my god, that does look like the body, like that, and then boom, like, because you're so focused on everything else that when the image comes back to life and she kind of just jumps forward, it's not even like, it doesn't scream, it doesn't make some big noise, but it's just the movement, it's the jerk out of that concentration and connection. It's just it's so impactful in there, and it's terrifying. It's fucking terrifying, and it just leaves you with this unsettling feeling. And to think that this girl was going through that she saw this premonition, this omen of the future, and she buried her phone and she buried her belongings out in Lake Mungo. And that's, you know, of course, the title of the film. Like, this is that big moment. Like, what is out there in Lake Mungo? And, you know, you find out that she knows this thing, but what does she really know? Like, to her, it's more just she got fucking terrified. She was startled, and then she had to kind of process what she was dealing with, in addition to what she already was emotionally dealing with her antics that we get to see caught on tape, with her sleeping with this guy, and I don't feel like they get into that enough. I think that's one I don't want to say flaw of the movie, but I don't feel like there's enough exploration of that aspect. Like, what was she doing with this guy? How did this hurt her boyfriend when he found this out? Like, there is some focus on it, but I feel like there could have been more drama pulled out of that, and more of a connection to why she was doing that and what the guy's motives were for coming into her room. Because he's like, oh yeah, you know, he just doesn't want the tape to get out, this and that, but we never even get to really talk to him. But that was just kind of thrown in there, and I feel like it was supposed to have some kind of impact, because it's like, oh, we're finding out secrets about this girl, and we're delving deeper into her psychological state at that time, and we have the interviews with the psychologist, and then we have his tapes, and he's doing the back and forth with the daughter, and then of course the mother later on, and I feel like all of those could have been explored more. It could have been more impactful had they kind of delved deeper into that, made a little more connections. a film that does this beautifully and is a better film than this, to be honest. Now, it's a different kind of film. Like, it's not horror more so than it's a thriller, is the film Searching, which is fucking phenomenal. I mean, it's definitely one of the best found footage movies, if you will, that is ever been made, in my opinion. I mean, it's fucking a phenomenal film. It's, I think, PG-13, and as I said, it's not horror, but man, you want to talk about a film that has a parent investigating into his daughter's life after he thinks she might already be dead, and kind of just exploring like his daughter's life, who he thinks he knows so well, and then he comes to find out he does not know this girl at all, and like, has he been so blind, and like the questions that poses in your mind of like, oh my god, I didn't know my kid. Am I a horrible person? Am I a bad father? Like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like, how could I have not seen these things? How was I so, blind to this? So I do feel like there could have been more elements of that in this movie. Like, the family, they do touch on that a little bit, because as I said, when they find the pornography, when they find her sex tape, they're kind of, pose these questions of like, what was she going through? How did we not know? Like, this and that. But like, they get the boyfriend's reaction, and of course, you kind of can fill in those blanks. Just his performance is fine in the moment, like he's finding this out, but they could have went in deeper into that. But like, I've been cheated on and not found out about it until years later. My high school girlfriend, who I was absolutely crazy about, and is actually named Ashley, and it's Ash Wednesday, so I'm bringing her up today. Ooh, spooky. No, it's not spooky at all. It's a really lame coincidence. I don't even know why I thought about it, because I made a Facebook post today thinking I was all clever, like, happy Ash Wednesday to all the Ashleys I know, or to all the Ashes I know, and I tagged everyone that had Ash in their name, mostly all Ashleys, and only like one or two people actually found it funny, and I thought it was really funny in the moment. Anyway, so it was just in my head. Anyway, but I recently talked to a friend, maybe a year or two ago, 2 years ago now, I think, and we were just talking about Ashley, and Ashley and I had a really big fallout, and it was really, really devastating for me. I'm not going to get into the details now, but I found out from him in that conversation, he said something, and I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, wait, what? You don't know? And I was like, what do you mean? What the fuck? What do I not know? And he's like, oh, Ashley was fucking around on you with this guy, and then your friends, and they were taking pictures of it, and all sorts of insane shit. And I was like, whoa. And it completely, like, skewed my whole memory of her in my head towards the past of what we were. Because in my mind, even though we had a falling out, and we had all these ugly, things happen after the relationship, my memory of our relationship as it was always this perfect, beautiful thing. And I became a very jaded guy through our ending of our relationship, and then subsequent relations thereafter. But I always had this perfect encapsulated memory of her, and then that became instantly tainted. Like, when he told that to me, I was fucking devastated in the moment. And I was kind of annoyed with myself, as I'm like, Jesus Christ, Jason, this happened like 20 years ago. Like, grow the fuck up. But then I had to step back and be like, you know what? These are your emotions. You can try to pretend that you're bigger than this. You can try to pretend this and that, but these are your emotions. Like, and you just kind of have to embrace them, and you kind of have to deal with them and sort them out in whichever way they are. And so, but here's the thing, Ashley's still alive. Like, to the best of my knowledge, I would think I would know if she was dead. She's not dead. So I get to kind of have these negative thoughts unchecked by my conscience or anything else, because it's like, oh, fuck that bitch. But when it's of the dead, especially the recently dead, and someone who you had nothing but positive memories of, like with Ashley, I at least had negative emotions towards her. It wasn't like we ended things and it was just like this, we were victims of circumstance where our families moved us apart and we were always like love struck, blah, blah, blah. Like, it wasn't like that. Like, we ended horribly. So like I had a negative image of her, but I had a positive image of the time before that then got tainted by you know, the truth coming out. But with this, in this movie, her boyfriend finds out about his girlfriend who he's crazy about. He thinks they have the most perfect relationship. And, you know, there's this great loss. She dies. And he is, of course, emotionally torn up about this. And that processing that alone is so difficult, right? So then for him to then find out, I don't even know how he would find out, honestly. Like, what did the parents tell him? Like, that seems like fucked up. I don't think they should have told him. But however he found out, he like he has to now find out that she was fucking around on him, and he has to process that through thinking like he saw her through this other lens, and now it's like you're thinking ill of the dead, having never thought ill of them before, and you're grieving for them, and then there's this like complete wrench thrown into your gears, and you just, I don't know, like, how do you process that? Like, everybody's different, right? So some people would immediately go to like, fuck that bitch, I'm glad she's dead. There are people like that. I'm not one of those people, but I could understand just the instant reactionary aggression and anger, and just kind of like you know, tossing her in the trash, just being done with her. And if that's true, and they can be able to do that, and that gets them away from that, then I guess that's fine for them. But then there's many other different ways that it can be processed. And just thinking about that in that moment, I was thinking back about the Ashley thing, but then being like, wow, she's not dead though. Like how do you take that? Fuck. Especially with as new as it is. And having now said all of that, I think that went on for like 5 minutes on that, but I guess because of my connection to it, the more I was thinking about how he would be grieving through that, and then the whole addition of the pornography tape and that aspect of the film, and the guy sneaking in the room for the safe and all that, I was like, really, that wasn't really all that much explored. Like, I don't feel like this really had a purpose to be in the film, other than to add like little elements of drama to keep the pacing of the film in line, you know? But it's like, it's good setup for something that's never really done well with. So, but I just kind of have to talk about that, and I feel like I have enough. But yeah, and I know this is an actor, and this didn't really happen, but this does happen. This kind of shit does happen, where you know you have this amazing, and the movies have been made on this, of course. You have this amazing perspective on somebody, they die, and of course you almost like put them to sainthood in your head, because when someone dies, they become untouchable, even if they were a piece of shit a lot of times. Unless they were like a total monster, like a Ted Bundy or something, then, you know, they're kind of open to attack. But if they were arguably a piece of shit, then that's like, all right, you're not supposed to speak ill of the dead. But yeah, just, wow, just processing that would be a lot. But I do feel his emotions in that moment. Even though it isn't explored upon all that much, I feel like the kid does do a good job of conveying kind of a confusion and a hurt in finding out this evidence. So there's that. Wow. Like one little teeny note, and I'm just like off on it forever. The mom talking about having nightmares of her dead kids standing at the foot of the bed, like in wet and whatever. Horrifying. Like, whether or not this was all just in her head or as an actual haunting, and she was seeing images of her ghost daughter, whatever it is, like, that would bring me to the edge. I don't know. Like, I've always said that if my kids died, I just genuinely don't think I can go on. You never know what you're going to do. Some people are stronger than they ever thought they were. Some people are weaker. You never do know. I always feel like it'd be the hardest, even though, is if one died and one lived, because then you really do need to be there emotionally for them, but you're so emotionally compromised by that point, or completely just wrecked, that how do you even function? How do you even do it? And you don't want to fuck up the kid's life who is alive. Like, you don't want to steal and rob them of that. So that, I feel like that's something else in this movie that isn't touched upon much, is like the death of one kid makes you kind of forget your responsibility to the other kid, which I actually think is explored really well, and is part of the twist and the reveal in the end of Saw 3. I think that's a great exploration of that, like, you know, the neglect of one child because of the obsession and depression that comes with the death of your other child. Fuck, man. Like, I don't know how people do that. And I know people who have had that happen. They have one kid die and they have other kids, and it's like they just have to pull it together and function for that kid. Braver people than me, I guess, or stronger people than me, should I say. And then, all right. I think I've talked about mostly everything. I can tell you that after I saw that footage of what they would then come to think of as her premonition footage, which, what was that? I mean, it really just comes down to that moment, and then from that moment, she just knew she was on borrowed time. I mean, is that what was really going through her head? Is that what made her make these choices? Like, I don't know. As I said, they don't do a fantastic job of exploring that. I guess it's just for us, the audience, to fill in. But if I saw that tape out there, it's funny because here's something I want to say. Everybody processes things differently, as I said before, so I can't say this is how it would be for sure. But from my own perspective, when they saw this footage that they found buried out in Lake Mungo, and it's this premonitionary footage of her death, her looming death, and her, you know, futuristic dead self coming to attack her or show her that she's, you know, got limited time, whatever it is, like, they in the movie find that to be closure. I found that to be very odd, because for me, not only would that make me a fucking full-on believer in whatever, because if I saw, like, my daughter's dead body looked exactly like, or, well, very close to the dead body that I did find, or not, I didn't find, but that I had to identify, I would be a believer overnight, like, instantly, like, we were completely reformed, like, holy shit, now I'm a hardcore believer in this stuff. But also in that, like, it would wreck me to my core. Like, it would fundamentally change everything about me. So for me, they're just kind of like, well, you know, she's gone now. You know, we're good. Like, we found this footage, and this is the spookiest shit you'll ever see in your life. And my mind would just be so wrapped around not only it actually happening, but what my daughter was going through after she saw what she saw. Burying that stuff, going out, thinking she was going to die. My daughter died in fear. My daughter was a wreck, and I didn't even notice. Like, am I a horrible parent? Like, I'm getting back to that, but that's like, this would rack my mind, or rack my mind. This would wreck my mind. I'd be racking my mind for all these clues that I missed. You know, whatever. The fact that they get closure out of this makes no sense to me. That would make everything so much worse for me. Like, that would be like the halfway point of the movie would be that footage. Because I then would be like, okay, what? You know, now I need to know everything. And then I feel like the footage would have came first. Then they would have found the sex tape. Then they would have fucking found out what was going on with the dude she was screwing, and then interviewed the boyfriend and got his reactions and everything. Like, I feel like that was the midway point of the movie, and that they needed the rest of the stuff to understand where she was at, what she did, and then they got the closure. It kind of came backwards for me. So I didn't find that to be believable. Now, of course, it's a fake movie, so of course none of this actually happened, but because of that, we're still talking about it like it is real, and I guess that's where it kind of lost me as a parent, because I know that's not where I would get closure. I did think it was kind of almost poetic in a way, where they kind of had their closure moment. The daughter here, they kind of play intercut with each other, juxtapose against one another, of the mom and the daughter talking about their interaction with one another in different timelines, and her mom kind of not seeing her, and the mom saying she's gone, and that's really kind of the moment where they let it go. And they kind of both have their closure, and they're going off into their next chapter, whatever that may be for the mom, and then whatever that may be for the daughter from the thereafter. Although she seems to be sticking around. For what, though, I don't know. Like, usually with ghost stuff, it's like they're sticking around for unfinished business, right? So they're trying to say, like, hey, I was killed, you need to look here, find my footage out here, and that'll tell you what really happened, like how I drowned, whatever. Now, this film doesn't go down that route. In fact, she just died, right? She saw premonition, and then they went out swimming, and she just drowned. Like, there wasn't anything. Did that monster come back and pull her under? Was it like a self-fulfilling prophecy? Like, she couldn't get away from it? Because I don't know. I don't know. But this is one of those movies that's just, it creeps into your mind, because it poses way more questions than it's ever going to answer. And then there's just the subtlety of things going on in the background. Like, I wish I could edit things into the background of this footage. So you'd just be like, this whole time there was like someone sitting right here on this couch that you didn't even notice. Because that's how the film plays out. Like, there's stuff in the image that you don't see until they still pause the image, and then it just like slowly focuses in over here where you never were looking, and you see something that you didn't notice from before, and there's like this dead silence that's going on that makes it just feel all that more eerie. But yeah, let's see. I think I talked about everything. Got really personal during this, and actually almost emotional, so there you go, man. A real review for you. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's about that. So yeah, Lake Mungo. This is going to be a pretty boring film for a lot of people. Like, those people that just need like constant stimulation, and they need jump scares and galore and all that stuff. The people are there. There will be people, and I just listened to the Exploding Heads horror movie podcast where they brought this up, and they had a couple guests on, and one of them was like, "Fuck that movie! It's so fucking boring. Nothing ever happens." And okay. I mean, everybody has their opinion, and I could understand that, I suppose. But because I'm so engaged, and because I'm so invested, and I'm so taken by the movie the whole time that I can't see that. But I guess if you weren't buying into anything, if the tone wasn't hitting you, if the atmosphere wasn't selling you, sucking you in, the movie is extremely slow. And technically, nothing happens. Like, in some regards. Like, if you were saying, like, the action, big payoff in some climatic event or whatever. Yeah, the film is extremely slow. There's nothing really being thrown at the screen all that much. But it's not like that. It's like more atmospherically eerie. And it just kind of sticks with you. At least it stuck with me. So there you go. So Grand Gato, thank you for the Patron donation. Of course, if you want to request your own video and get it done, you can always ask me what I own or something, and then find out through that, or if it's online, I'll get to it eventually. Hopefully I'll get to watch a couple patron request movies tomorrow at work, because I don't have any clients as of right now. But I guarantee every time I sit down to try to watch one, I'll get clients, but I need the money. So, I can't complain. Anyway, so thank you to Grand Gato, thank you to everybody who watches, and thank you to anybody who will donate to the Patreon in the future or already has. I really do appreciate it, guys. All right, adios.